By the time I saw the moving truck outside my house that afternoon, I already knew something was wrong. But the truth is, it didn't start there. It started with a phone call. A call that came too early and ended too quickly. It was 6:02 in the morning when my phone rang. At my age, calls at that hour don't usually bring good news, so I answered it right away. Natalie, there was a pause on the other side, not silence exactly, more like someone trying to breathe quietly. "Gwen," she said, her voice was low, careful. And then she said something that didn't make sense. "Please, don't come home today." I didn't speak for a second, because it wasn't what she said that bothered me, it was how she said it. I've lived long enough to recognize fear, and Natalie wasn't just worried, she was afraid. "If you come back early," she whispered, "they'll finish before you get there." My hand tightened around the phone. I asked, "Finish what?" But she didn't answer, the line went quiet. And then the call ended. I stood there in my kitchen for a long time after that. The refrigerator hummed like it always does. The clock ticked on the wall, normal sounds. But that morning they felt louder, like the house itself was trying to tell me something. "They'll finish," I repeated the words slowly. "Finish what? Cleaning, repairs, something at the house?" "No." It didn't sound like that. There was something else in her voice, something urgent, something already in motion. And then, without meaning to, my thoughts went back to the night before. My birthday dinner, at first, it felt normal, a little louder than I like, but that's Logan. My son has always enjoyed a full table, more people, more noise, more energy, that's just who he is. There were a few guests I didn't know very well, a couple from nearby, 2 men from his business. One of them shook my hand when he arrived. "Curtis," he said. I smiled politely. I've learned not to worry too much about names I won't need again. Logan was in a good mood that night, very good. He kept moving around the table, pouring drinks, refilling plates. Making sure no one sat too quietly, it looked like he was just being a good host. But after some time, I started noticing something. The questions, they didn't come all at once. They came slowly. Spread out between conversations, almost hidden. "How complicated is Dad's paperwork these days?" he asked. He said it casually, like it didn't matter. I wiped my hands with my napkin before answering. "It's organized," I said. "My attorney helped me sort everything." He nodded, too quickly, like that was the answer he expected. Later, while everyone was laughing about something I didn't quite catch, he asked another one. "Did you ever move the accounts into a trust?" I looked at him for a moment. "Not yet," I said. "I've been thinking about it." I didn't explain further and he didn't ask more, but I noticed something. Across the table, Natalie had stopped eating. Her fork rested on the plate, untouched. She wasn't looking at her food, she was looking at Logan, then down again, then back at him, quietly, carefully. At the time, I told myself she was just tired. People get tired, life gets busy. There's always something going on, but now, thinking back to that moment, I realized something else. She wasn't tired, she was watching him. Near the end of dinner, Logan asked one last question. This one was more direct. "You still keep the property papers in the office safe, right?" The room didn't go quiet, no one reacted, but I did, just a little. I gave a small nod. "Yes," nothing more. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. Not fear, not yet, just awareness. I excused myself a few minutes later, told everyone I needed a moment, and walked down the hallway to my office. When I closed the door behind me, the noise from the living room faded, just enough for me to think clearly. I stood there for a second, looking at my desk. At the papers resting neatly in the center. I've worked in accounting most of my life. You learn things in that kind of work. You learn to notice patterns, small changes. Tiny details that don't seem important at first but usually are, and something about that dinner didn't feel right. The folder on my desk had been there for weeks, prepared by my attorney. Ready to be signed, a simple step really, something I had been putting off because I didn't see any urgency, but that night felt different. So I sat down, opened the folder, and started reading. Slowly, carefully, line by line, a revocable living trust. Clear, structured, protected, everything in one place, everything secure, the house, the accounts, everything my husband had left behind. I took a pen, paused for just a second, and then I signed it. At the time, it felt like I was just getting organized, nothing more. But when I walked back into the living room, I saw something that made me stop. Logan was standing near the coffee table. My purse was open in his hands. He looked up the moment he saw me. Too quickly? Oh, he said, almost smiling, just looking for aspirin. I didn't argue, not there, not in front of guests. I simply nodded, walked past him, and sat back down. But something about that moment stayed with me longer than it should have. The rest of the evening continued. People laughed, talked, finished their drinks, but the feeling had changed. Just slightly, enough for me to notice. And Natalie, she kept watching Logan even more carefully now. At the time, I didn't ask questions. Sometimes, as a parent, you learn not to push. You tell yourself it's better to wait, better to stay quiet, but looking back now, that was the moment everything started. I just didn't see it yet. Because what I didn't understand that night was how much pressure Logan was already under, or how far he was willing to go. And by the next morning, Natalie did. Looking back now, the problems didn't begin the morning Natalie called me. They had been building for months. Quietly, slowly, and right in front of me. I just didn't see the full picture at the time. Logan runs a logistics company near the port. At least that's how he always described it. Trucks, warehouses, shipping contracts. For years, it sounded stable. Whenever he talked about work, he sounded confident. He talked about new routes, new clients, expansion plans, the kind of things people say when business is growing, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son, but sometime last year something changed. At first it was small things, things most people wouldn't notice. Sunday dinners started getting canceled more often. Logan used to come every week, sometimes with Natalie, sometimes alone, but he always came. Then suddenly, busy week, he would text. Or, something came up at the warehouse. At first I didn't think much of it. Business owners are busy, that's normal, but then I started noticing the pattern. It wasn't just once or twice. It was almost every week, and when he did show up, he seemed different, restless, like his mind was somewhere else. One evening, Natalie stayed behind after dinner while Logan stepped outside to take a call. We were in the kitchen, washing dishes. It was quiet except for the running water. And then she said something, almost like she didn't mean to say it out loud. Payroll was delayed last week. I looked at her. What do you mean? She quickly shook her head. Oh, it's nothing, she said, just temporary. Temporary. People say that word a lot when they're trying not to worry someone, but something about the way she said it felt different. A few weeks later, something else happened. Logan was outside my house again, talking on the phone. He didn't know I was near the door. His voice sounded tense, lower than usual. I told you the payment's coming, he said. There was a pause, then you're not the only creditor here. Creditor, that word stayed with me. When Logan noticed me standing inside the doorway, he ended the call immediately, too quickly, like someone hanging up before the wrong person hears the next sentence. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, he said right away, too fast, just work stuff. Then he changed the subject just like that. Later that evening, Natalie was still in the kitchen while Logan went upstairs to use the bathroom. She stood by the counter for a moment, quiet like she was deciding something, then she spoke. His loans are getting complicated. Her voice was soft, careful. I leaned against the counter. What kind of loans? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she dried her hands slowly with a towel. Business expansion, she said, but the timing hasn't been great. That was all she said, and that was all I asked. I spoke to Logan about it the next time we talked. I didn't accuse him. I didn't push, I simply asked. He didn't hesitate. It's normal business financing, he said. Nothing you need to worry about. Then he smiled, that confident smile he's always had. The one that makes people believe him, so I let it go. Parents do that sometimes. We step back, even when something feels a little off. We tell ourselves our children know what they're doing. Even when we're not completely sure, but the truth was things were already worse than he was saying, much worse. Logan had expanded too quickly, new trucks, new warehouse space. New contracts that looked promising at first, but most of it had been financed with borrowed money, loans, lines of credit, personal guarantees. The kind that follow you personally if the business fails. And then the contracts started falling apart. One client went bankrupt. Another canceled a shipping route. A third moved their business overseas. Suddenly, the money slowed down, but the debt didn't. Payments kept coming due. Suppliers needed to be paid. Employees expected their checks, fuel bills, insurance, loan interest. Every week the pressure grew heavier. By the time of my birthday dinner, Logan was running out of time. The bank had already warned him. His collateral wasn't strong enough anymore, not with the business losing contracts. They gave him a deadline, 48 hours, to show more collateral or they would begin taking action. At the time, I didn't know the exact numbers, but I could feel the pressure around him, even if he never said it out loud. And now, thinking back to those questions he asked at dinner about the house, about the safe, about the paperwork, it started to make sense. After Natalie's call that morning, I still went to work. I followed my usual routine. Sometimes routine is the only thing that keeps your thoughts steady. Coffee, morning reports, emails, the same things I do every day. But Natalie's words kept repeating in my mind, over and over again. Don't go home today. Around 9 o'clock, I decided to call my attorney, Martin Keller. He has handled my legal paperwork for years. He's the type of person who doesn't panic. Calm, careful, the kind of lawyer who reads every line twice. Martin, I said when he answered, I received a strange phone call this morning. He listened quietly while I explained what Natalie had said. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he asked one simple question. Did you sign the trust documents last night? Yes, I said. There was a pause, then I heard typing on his keyboard. Everything was filed, he said after a moment, but let me check something. I waited while he searched. We stayed on the phone, then his tone changed, just slightly more focused. Someone tried to access your property records last night. I sat up in my chair. What do you mean, access them? Through the county records system, he said. Online, I frowned. That wasn't me. I didn't think it was, he replied. I felt a slow tension build in my chest. How do you know someone tried? Because there's a request log, he explained. And the internet address used for the request, he paused, is connected to your home network. For a moment, I couldn't speak. That's impossible, I finally said. I wasn't even on my computer last night. I believe you, Martin said calmly. Then he continued, and there's something else. I waited, my fingers tightened around the phone. There's a mobile notary appointment scheduled for this morning, he said. Under your name. My heart skipped. I didn't schedule anything. I know, he replied quietly. Which means someone else did. The room suddenly felt different, heavier, like the air had thickened. If anyone asks you to sign documents today, Martin said carefully, do not sign anything until I review them first. I won't, I said, and I meant it. But by lunchtime, I had already made a decision, one that felt unavoidable. I needed to go home, because Natalie hadn't sounded confused. She hadn't sounded uncertain. She sounded like someone who had already seen something that was happening right now, and suddenly I understood something clearly. She wasn't warning me about an argument. She wasn't warning me about a misunderstanding. She was warning me about a plan, something that had already begun. So that afternoon I left work early, told my manager it was a personal matter. He didn't ask questions. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every traffic light, every turn, every minute seemed stretched. And when I finally turned onto my street, I slowed the car down. Because right there in front of my house was a moving truck. And that was the moment I realized Natalie hadn't been exaggerating. Something was already happening inside my home. Something that shouldn't have been. The moving truck was parked directly in front of my house. Not down the street, not near the corner, right in front of my door. Two men were walking in and out. Carrying boxes, moving quickly, like they had done this many times before, like this was just another normal job. I didn't step out of the car right away. I just sat there, watching. Trying to understand what I was looking at. Then I saw Logan, standing on the porch, talking to the movers, calm, focused, in control. Start with the hallway pieces, he said, pointing inside. Then move the silver from the dining room. He turned slightly and added, the safe is in the office, use a dolly for that. The safe. That was the moment everything became clear. This wasn't cleaning, this wasn't organizing, he was emptying the house. I opened the car door slowly, stepped out, closed it behind me. Before walking toward the house, I took out my phone and called Martin. He answered immediately. I'm outside, I said quietly. There's a moving truck here. There was no surprise in his voice. I'm already on my way, he replied. That alone told me enough. There was a short pause, then he added, don't sign anything, and if possible, don't handle this alone. I understand, I said and ended the call. Then I started walking toward the front door. Each step felt heavier than the last. As I got closer, I could hear Logan's voice from inside, clear, confident. Mom already signed everything last night, he was saying. We're just organizing things before the bank steps in. I stopped at the doorway just for a second, so that was the story. Then I walked in. The moment I stepped inside, everything stopped. One of the movers froze mid-step. The other slowly lowered the box in his hands, and Logan turned around. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His expression changed quickly, first surprise, then something else, something more controlled. "Mom," he said, forcing a calm tone. "You're home early?" I looked past him, down the hallway. The office door was open. Boxes lined the walls, drawers had been pulled out, files stacked neatly on the floor. The safe was already halfway exposed behind the desk. "I finished work early," I said. My voice stayed steady. Logan crossed his arms like everything was normal. "We're just reorganizing things," he said. "There's too much paperwork sitting around." I took a few steps into the room, slowly, carefully. "Reorganizing," I repeated. He nodded. Then walked toward the dining table, picked up a folder. "I was going to talk to you about this tonight," he said. He slid the papers across the table toward me. I didn't sit down. I stayed where I was and looked at the top page, Power of Attorney. Under that, more documents, forms giving Logan full control over my accounts, my property, everything. I didn't touch them. Before I could say anything, a woman stepped forward from near the window. I hadn't noticed her before. "I'm here to witness the signature," she said. Her voice was slightly unsteady. I looked at her carefully and then I recognized her. Dana, she worked with Logan. I turned back to the papers, then spoke calmly. "I didn't agree to this." The room went quiet again. Logan let out a slow breath like he was trying to stay patient. "Mom, we talked about this," he said. "You signed documents last night?" "No," I replied, "just that, nothing more." He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. "You don't understand how serious this is," he said. "I'm trying to fix things before they get worse." I didn't move. Across the room, the movers were watching, carefully. Like they were starting to realize this wasn't what they had been told. I turned slightly toward Dana. "You said you're here to witness a signature," I told her. "Did you verify anything before coming here?" She hesitated. "Just for a second, that was enough." "I was told everything was already approved," she said quietly. "That you just needed to sign again for the bank." I nodded once, slowly, then I took out my phone. "I'd like you to hear something," I said. I dialed Martin, put the call on speaker. He answered immediately. "I have the notary here," I said. There was a brief pause, then his voice came through clearly. "Ask her for her credentials," he said. "And inform her that proceeding without proper authorization may be considered fraud." The word hung in the air. Fraud. Everything changed in that moment. Dana's expression shifted instantly. Her confidence disappeared. I didn't know," she said quickly. "I thought." She stopped, looked at Logan, then back at me. "I'm sorry," she said softly. The room felt different now, heavier. More real. One of the movers stepped back. The other slowly set his box down. Logan didn't say anything, not yet, but I could see it. For the first time, his control was slipping. And for the first time that day, everyone in the room understood something clearly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something much more serious.